week later, I'd moved in with a guy named Bob Brooks, who I just saw a few minutes ago, who came to honor me by attending my lunch. And I lived in South Hall and was getting ready for college. I still had blisters from the concrete shovel. Northwestern was not my school of last resort. It was my school of only resort. And I'm sure there's some of you out there like me. But my struggle to get here and stay here is not terribly different from stories all over this hall. The only difference is that you made it, and I was asked to leave in my second year. The president of the university called me into his office and said, "Mr. Strother, you don't seem to be happy at Northwestern State. Maybe you would be happier in some liberal school like the University of Texas or LSU." "No, sir," I replied. "I'm very happy here." "Well, we're not happy having you here. We would like for you to be gone Saturday." I guess I could have predicted it. Eisenhower was president, and we were still in the McCarthy era. For you, those of you, and that's most of you who are too young for this, people were labeled communists if they agreed with a Wisconsin senator or they disagreed with any conventional conservative wisdom. You may remember from reading history that McCarthy, for political advantage, destroyed the lives and reputations of many fine people by calling them communists, strictly for political advantage. He was later renounced by his own colleagues in the Senate. Today, his name is used to describe demagoguery, restless and unsubstantial accusations, as well as public attacks on the character or patriotism of political opponents. When I was asked to leave Northwestern, our nation was living in fear, afraid to speak out against injustice, afraid to say that the emperor has no clothes, afraid to exercise our First Amendment rights. The day before my meeting in the president's office, I'd picked it outside the auditorium with one other student against the John Birch Society, a right-wing hate group formed during the McCarthy era that labeled everyone to the left of them a communist, a group that was against equal rights or human rights. I considered them un-American. But I didn't argue the First Amendment rights with the president. I picked up my new wife, Sandy, and some books and drove to Baton Rouge. In Baton Rouge, we both found jobs, and I enrolled in LSU. But I was angry, really angry. Angry at the president of Northwestern, angry at the school itself. Being expelled had briefly ripped my future away. Decades later, sitting in my mountain home with Dr. John Duffy, the father of one of my best friends, he told me an amazing story, a story I didn't know. Dr. Duffy had been a professor of history at Northwestern and later became one of the great medical historians in America. I was astonished that night to find out that he had also been pushed out of Northwestern State several years before. Why, I asked. Basically, he admitted to the fact that he had voted for Harry Truman, and it was widely believed in the minds of some of the administration here that Harry Truman was a communist, President Harry Truman. In fact, Dr. Duffy said they also considered President Eisenhower, the commanding general of the greatest military victory in the history of the world, soft on communism. Dr. Duffy took his new wife that he had met at Northwestern and went on to great success at the University of Maryland and LSU and authored several books. We'd both been victims of name-calling, fear, intolerance, bigotry, and anti-intellectualism. Strong words. But my anger smoldered for years because being kicked out of Northwestern meant I'd come close to returning to working in concrete with my shovel. But Duffy wasn't angry. He said it all worked out for the best. He still remembered Northwestern fondly as the place he met his wife. Dr. Duffy was obviously a better man than I. He's dead now, but I took some lessons from him. Americans have more freedom and opportunity today than they did in the early 60s. It's a better country because it continues to change and make course corrections. I learned about forgiveness and redemption from Dr. Duffy, and I learned about forgiveness and redemption from the great civil rights hero, Congressman John Lewis. I made 2 film documentaries for Congressman Lewis depicting this great American hero's life. He had scars on his back from being burned with cigarettes at lunch counters. He was beaten senseless by a sheriff in Selma, Alabama, and thrown in jail with a fractured skull. Even today, he has a speech impediment from the blows. So one afternoon, as we drove to Birmingham to meet President Clinton to recreate the great march, Selma March for the right to vote, a simple thing, why can't we vote? John Lewis had led that march over the Pettus Bridge in Selma. I asked him if he hated the sheriff who had almost ended his life. No, he said, that sheriff was just a victim of his time. He was following the rules set by others. Imagine, I was so petty as to hold grudge against Northwestern, and this great man had forgiven the man on horseback who had run him down with dogs and beaten him senseless with a club. It made him huge. It made me small. I refused to come here on several occasions to speak. I don't remember who finally brought me back to Northwestern. I've been trying to find out. It may have been Dr. Webb. It may have been my friend Jerry Pierce. It may have been Mary Bricotto, all friends. Finally, one day, though, I did get a call from Mary Bricotto. We'd worked together in the John McKithen administration. And she said if I didn't come to Northwestern to speak, she'd tell everything she knew about me. So I came. Also, it might have been Dr. Webb who said, look, everybody who kicked you out of school has been dead 25 years. So that sort of ended the argument. You know, sense sometimes can break through to me. So I came back again and again and again until finally I was awarded the Wise Chair in Journalism. And I must admit that coming back to Northwestern has been one of the best events in my life. The 2 semesters I taught here were more rewarding probably than 300 or so campaigns I've been involved in. As an instructor, I learned more than I taught, but I also felt I was able to contribute. I learned that people who teach here really care. I learned that the students here could match students anywhere, if motivated. Dr. Paula Furr taught me about teaching. Mary Bricotto taught me that it was not a weakness to care about the students one-on-one. I watched Dr. Webb struggle with gigantic problems of a university in hard economic times, and he earned my admiration. I've learned a lot. In retrospect, I'm thankful I had my start in life here. I'm thankful to Coach Leday's note. Without Northwestern launching me into academia, I might still be shoveling concrete. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to repay the debt. To make sense of this, I must say that you've been given a gift by a lot of good people. That gift is opportunity. Many of you out there will realize one day that Northwestern was your only resort. And without this institution, your life would be different. So like it or not, you have a debt. You have a debt to this institution and these people who worked so hard to bring you to this day. Don't wait as long as I did to begin making installment payments. And your minds have been opened, and I hope broadened, so that you don't mimic Senator McCarthy and label people socialists or communists or Nazis or fascists or un-American because they disagree with you. I hope you don't consider conservatives stupid or liberals unpatriotic. We're a great country, and we didn't get here by dividing people. And we didn't get here certainly by calling people names. When you hear people calling names McCarthy style, they're doing it through ignorance or malice. If they do it through ignorance, be kind, pity them. If they do it through malice, move away and find better company. Part of your debt to the education you receive is to remember to think, to have an open mind. I left here because of a closed mind, and I returned because of open minds. And I'm in debt to the people sitting behind me. I'm in debt to Northwestern, and the account will always be open. Thank you.